Welcome to the Caribbean Cricket Podcast, your one-stop shop for all things West Indies cricket. By the fans, for the fans. Yes, ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to another edition, another episode, another conversation of the Caribbean Cricket Podcast. It's been a minute. It's been a strong minute. You know, there's been a lot going on. We did some live shows after leading up to the T20s, a reaction after the first T20. And at the time of recording, the West Indies lead the T20 series versus England. Just plug this laptop in. They lead the T20 series versus England 2-1 with 2 to play as the final 2 games of the series move to Trinidad and the Brian Lara Cricket Academy. I've been on Talk Sport. Thank you to those of you who listened in, sent some well wishes and whatnot. So I was doing some commentary on Talk Sport in the UK for the 3rd T20, and I will be on comms again for the 4th and the 5th T20. So if you're somebody who likes to listen to radio, just tune into Talk Sport 2 and you'll hear me there across those 2 games, the remaining 2 games of the series. But everything notwithstanding, we've been promising for the longest while that we would do a video reacting to the West Indies A tour of South Africa. And although the boys flew back from South Africa and have landed in the Caribbean probably about a week ago now, it's still relevant. It's still relevant to go over that particular series, particularly in light of the fact that the West Indies Test squad is due in Australia in early January. And we are expecting the Test squad to be named for that Australia tour within the next week or so. So actually, this video is very, very pertinent in terms of looking at the A-team tour of South Africa and trying to determine if anybody has really forced themselves into selection vis-a-vis the West Indies Test squad. For those who don't know, of course, this is worth points in the World Test Championship. It's not easy for the West Indies. Our first 3 games in the World Test Championships were India at home, Australia away, and England away. It doesn't get any harder than that, really and truly. But it is what it is. You know, we were in Australia no less than a year ago. We're back in Australia again, but this time, obviously, with World Test Championship points, significant World Test Championship points on the line. We are lambs to the slaughter. I mean, Pakistan right now just got licked down, predictably so, in the first test against Australia. So we don't go there with any real expectation that we can cause an upset, but we should go there thinking that we can, or we should be going there aiming to compete better than we did the last time round. So anyways, before we look at the A-team tour, as ever, get your pad, get your pen, take some notes, because you know how I do on these videos. I always like to try to give the stats and the facts and make sure that there's some kind of solid analysis going into the justifications for whatever I go on to say. So the first thing that people need to remind themselves of is who played in the last test match that West Indies played, which was in July, earlier this year in the summer, in Port of Spain against India. We drew that test match mostly due to rain, but the point is we had to survive. How many overs did we survive? 32 overs before the rain came on the final day, and we were able to hold on for a draw and get some percentage points, 16 percentage points in the World Test Championship. Now, the 11 that played that test match was as follows: Craig Brathwaite, Tej Chanderpaul, Kirk McKenzie, this is in order, Jermaine Blackwood, Ali Cathanays, Josh De Silva at 6, Jason Holder, Alzari Joseph, Kimar Roach, Jamel Warrican, Shannon Gabriel. And riding the bench were Raymond Reefer and Kevin Sinclair. So that was the last 13-man squad that was selected for a West Indies test match. Obviously, going to Australia, you can expect that there will be a 15-man squad. We have some tour games. I think it's 2 tour games before the first test match. I can't remember if there's a tour game in between 1 and 2. I don't think there is, but we definitely have 2 tour games prior to that first test match against the Australians. So first things first is the understanding that we should have a 15-man squad. This video isn't meant to tell you who that 15-man squad will be. It's more just looking at who the kind of contenders are. Now, before we get into who those contenders will be, it's worth going back to the 18 tour and just trying to analyze what happened there. So West Indies played 3 matches on the 18 tour, 3 quote-unquote unofficial test matches. The first one we won by 1 wicket. Kevin Sinclair with a brilliant rearguard action. Was it Jaden Seals who was with him, or was it Sherman Lewis? Won by 1 wicket to chase down. Let me remind myself. What did we chase down? We chased down 2-2-4 to win. It was Jair McAllister who was with him at the end. So he won that one by 1 wicket. And that was no mean feat. Go back and look at our record in South Africa since the South Africans came out of the ban. And we rarely win any games in South Africa when it comes to Test cricket. We won that one. I want to say it was back in 2007. We won that 1 Test match, which was just as much a shock as this A-team victory was in the first unofficial test against South Africa A. Now, we also must remember that this South Africa A team that was selected is likely to be, or the majority of those players are likely to be, the side that plays against New Zealand in a couple of months. The reason being, of course, that the top 60 players in South Africa are signed up to that South Africa T20 tournament that they have. South Africa, the board, South African Cricket Board, foolishly had test obligations against the New Zealanders, and as a result, in order to fulfill those obligations against New Zealand, they will be selecting what effectively is this team that played against West Indies A. So in some regards, you can say that it was South Africa A versus West Indies A, but effectively it was the South African test team that will go to New Zealand, or the majority of them, against West Indies A team. And of course, we had some test players as well. Now, first and foremost, let's look at the bat, because although we won that first test match, unofficial test match, that was the only time, well, not the only time, that was our best performances with the bat effectively came in the first 2 innings of that particular, the 2 innings in that particular test match. And then we didn't have another good performance until the final innings of the 3rd unofficial test. So to remind people, in the first one, South Africa made 287. I can't remember if we batted first. No, we didn't. South Africa made 287 for 9 declared. We responded with 314 for 9 declared. South Africans were then bowled out for 250, which set us 224 to win, which we chased down with 1 wicket to spare. Brilliant win. Second unofficial test match, the South Africans, obviously smarting from that defeat, absolutely smashed us. They made 298 batting first. West Indies made 154 in reply. The South Africans then piled on 297 for 4 declared before the West Indians were bowled out for 209. So the South Africa A won that second unofficial test by 232 runs. And then in the decider, South Africa A again up first, 274 all out. In response, and this is where West Indies lost the game, West Indies A were bowled out for 126. South Africa A then made 272 for 5 declared in 66 overs, setting the West Indians a mammoth total of 418. I can't remember if that was the exact total. And the West Indians, in fairness, put up a strong fight. Josh De Silva scoring a century before we eventually bowled out for 344, meaning we lost that particular test match by 76 runs, and South Africa A took the series 2-1. Now, on the surface, if you had said prior to the West Indies A team going out to South Africa, they're going to lose that series 2-1, everybody would have bitten your hand off for that, just because of the poor record that the West Indians have had in South Africa over the last, 25 years. But I'm sure the team would have felt disappointed that, having won the first unofficial test match, that they weren't able to then get another victory. But there were some strong performances. Now, if we look at the bat was actually probably the weaker suit in terms of the strong performances. Kevin Sinclair was a standout with both bat and ball. He was the man of the series vis-a-vis the West Indies, if not across the whole three test match series. And he is the one who has come out of that tour with the strongest claim to work his way not only into the Australia touring squad, which he almost certainly will be part of, but if West Indies decide to play an off-spinner, it is almost certain that Kevin Sinclair, if West Indies decide to play a spinner full stop in those test matches in Australia, it is almost certain that it will be Kevin Sinclair. So Sinclair himself made 220 runs in those 6 innings that he batted, at an average of 44 with 250s across the 6 innings. Across the 6 innings. With the ball, Sinclair took 12 wickets at 26 apiece with 1 fifer. So it speaks for itself. Strong with both bat and with ball. Just reminding myself where West Indies actually batted Sinclair in the order. He batted at number 7, I think. 3, 4, 5, 6. Yeah, he batted at number 7. Okay, I'm not saying that that's where he will bat for the West Indies should he get his debut Test match, but certainly there is enough. And Desmond Haynes, in fairness, has said this in recent press conferences that they believe that Kevin Sinclair is an all-rounder. So if and when he makes his debut for the West Indies, it'll be very interesting to see where they bat him. I would assume 8, with maybe De Silva and Holder ahead of him if he gets a play, but he clearly can bat a lot higher than that. Next highest with the bat was Kavem Hodge, 179 runs at 30 apiece with 150, top score of 73. And that was as good as it got, people. That was as good as it got with the bat. Zachary McCaskey, 176 runs at 29 apiece, 250s, top score of 62. Is that really enough to be dislodging Tej Chanderpaul? No. Is it enough for him to go to Australia as the backup opener? Possibly. Josh De Silva, 152 runs at 25 with 1 century. He was the only West Indian to score a century, and it came right at the end. And that is as timely a century as Josh could ever have got, because really and truly, in truth, Josh's position was under threat. And if he hadn't made the score on this tour, I would have been intrigued to see where West Indies went next, vis-a-vis who's going to be the Test match wicketkeeper. Josh could possibly have kept his place because, of course, he's the incumbent. And when you look around the Caribbean, who's really threatening his place? Other than the idea of maybe putting Shea Hope as Test match wicketkeeper, there doesn't seem to be any standout options to replace Josh. So that century was timely in so much as reminding people that he can actually bat, because he has been in somewhat of a slump. So that century probably has made sure that Josh's place is under no scrutiny whatsoever. Whether you think it should be or not, you know how it works in West Indies cricket, under no scrutiny. Tej had a substandard time of it, 150 runs at 25 with 150, top score 78. Kurt McKenzie had a terrible time of it as well. And like Josh, he only scored at the very end, in the very final innings that West Indies batted, in a counter-attacking 81. But across the series with 6 at bats, 147 runs at 25 with that top score of 81. Tevin Imlach, 55 runs. I think he played 2 matches, 4 innings, 55 runs at 14. And of course, the young Jamaican Jordan Johnson got his chance in that final match, having been flown out because Kevlin Anderson could not make it there. So not a lot to write home about with the bat. With the ball, also you could argue, well, no, there were some more encouraging signs with the ball. Kevin Sinclair spoke about. Shamar Joseph was the standout. And that's the one, he's the one who's got tongues talking. Obviously, everyone's told the story. He was a security guard. He quit his job. Amazon Warriors picked him up. Harpy Eagles played him in some games. And now he's in the West Indies A team. It's an exponential rise to fame for Shamar Joseph. Does that mean that Shamar Joseph should be included in a touring squad to Australia? Check this out. Probably. Now, of course, Shamar Joseph has played, 3 first-class matches, plus, if you want to count these 2 unofficial Test matches in South Africa, to make 5, right? A man should not be called up to the West Indies Test match squad with only 5 first-class matches to his name. But you have to take into consideration where West Indies are touring. They're going to Australia. They will need some quicks. That's the simple facts and reality of the situation. Against South Africa, Shamar Joseph took 12 wickets at 21 apiece with 1 fifer. Jaden Seals, who also, by the way, was on his recovery journey prior to getting injured in the 3rd unofficial Test, fell on the field, hurt his shoulder. I've been told by people he's going to be fit for Australia, but that I don't know, that remains to be seen. But Jaden had taken 5 wickets up until then at 19 apiece, which of course is encouraging. Jaden is very much star boy of West Indies in terms of the up-and-coming youth man with the ball in the Caribbean. So good to see him on the comeback trail in spite of that injury that he picked up in the final unofficial Test. But other than that, that was it. Akeem Jordan, 9 wickets at 36. Unsurprising, because remember with Akeem is very much medium is he even medium fast? But the Akeem's strength is bowling in conditions that allow for the ball to swing. If there's not much swing on offer, I think it's very easy to adapt to Akeem's bowling just because he doesn't have that extra pace. Akeem was ahead of Shamar Joseph in the pecking order prior to this tour. Will they take Akeem Jordan to Australia? Technically, they should, because he was ahead of Shamar Joseph. Akeem Jordan was on that tour. Which tour was he on earlier in the year? Was it Zimbabwe? Was it Zimbabwe? I can't remember where they took Akeem earlier in the year, but he was definitely on tour somewhere. I'm sure when you lot are watching this back in the comments, you'll remind me. It doesn't come to mind right now, but Akeem Jordan has always been on the fringes of the West Indies Test match squad as it is. So the question for me is, does Shamar Joseph leapfrog him, or do they both go to Australia when the Test squad is released? Sherman Lewis, 5 wickets at 42. Jair McAllister, 4 wickets at 48. They have played themselves out of contention. Jair McAllister was the probably heir apparent vis-a-vis who's the next quick off the rank. And when we say quick, we mean genuine express pace quick. Jair has taken wickets for Barbados. It was very much a case of, based on what I'd heard behind the scenes, that West Indies were looking at both Akeem Jordan and Jair McAllister to be the next 2 cabs off the rank. But Shamar Joseph put in a very strong performance in South Africa. Will he leapfrog both? You get at me in the comments below. Do you think he should? Or should West Indies still be persisting with, probably there's a strong argument to say so, they should be persisting with the development of a Jair McAllister. Yes, it didn't go well for him in South Africa vis-a-vis numbers of wickets taken and so on and so forth, but very few bowlers in the region have the express pace that Jair McAllister has. So if we don't take him to Australia, even if it's only to play in some tour games, what is that saying for the developmental process? So having looked at all of those performances, and obviously get in the comments below about anything that you think about it, I then went and looked at, so what's a likely squad looking like for Australia at this particular stage? Obviously, Desi and Roland Holder and Roland Butcher, and Andre Coley, etc., will be looking at these performances in South Africa. They'll be looking at performances earlier in the year, vis-a-vis first class championship, and I don't know if some Super 50 performances come into it. And this is what I've worked out. Again, get your pen and your paper. Brathwaite and Chanderpaul are a lock. They will open in Australia. They did well last time out. For those who don't remember, in Australia last time out, with the bat, Brathwaite averaged 49 across the 2 matches, and Tage averaged 40 across the 2 matches. They were the only 2 standout batters in Australia last time out. Chase averaged 29, Blackwood 16, Brooks 13, Josh 13, Holder 10, Mayers 6. So it was very much Tage and Craig who pretty much showed up, and that was it in Australia last time. So of course they will open. There's a question mark about who will be the backup opener that they take on tour. It is likely, based on what happened on the A Tour, that it will be Zachary McCaskey. Whether it should or whether it shouldn't be, it's likely that it will be, because why else did they take him on the A Tour to South Africa? In the top to middle order, against India, Kirk McKenzie was at number 3. It is almost a lock and a certainty that Kirk will go to Australia. Should Kirk be in the West Indies Test match squad? No. That's not, I'm not anti-Kirk McKenzie. I'm not asking man to get in his feelings. It was a flawed selection process to bring Kirk McKenzie into the West Indies Test match squad ahead of some other players. Yes, I know he scored the 200. Yes, people are going to say he scored some 50s against Bangladesh A. I hear all that. But Kirk McKenzie hasn't even established himself at the regional level for Jamaica. How did he leapfrog so many people straight into the West Indies Test match squad? It doesn't make sense to me. But he's there now, so his place is a lock. He's in that second test against India, scored a 32 and a duck. Boy, baptism of fire awaits for him in Australia. I wish him well. but maybe there's some others waiting in the wings who possibly could say, I should be going instead of the youth man. Blackwood was number 4 against India. Jermaine Blackwood has not been given a central contract by Cricket West Indies. Does this mean that Blackwood is going to be dropped for Australia? Evidence would suggest yes, because Blackwood played every test match last year and now he doesn't have a central contract. If you are intending to still pick Jermaine Blackwood going forward, you would have given him a central contract. If he gets picked, despite him not having a central contract, was this punishment? What message are you sending Jermaine Blackwood? He is the test match vice captain after all. I suspect Jermaine Blackwood is going to get dropped. So the question is, who will replace him in the West Indies middle order? We'll get back to that. Alec Afne is batted at 5. He's a lock. Josh De Silva was at 6. I don't know if he should be batting number 6, but he's a lock for now. Okay, whether it's 6 or whether lower down the order. Jason Holder, Jason Holder just picks himself. There's again question marks about he didn't play. Wait a minute, did Holder play the Test series against India? Yes, of course he did. Holder in the Test series against India. And just bring up my stats from that Test series against India. Bear with me, people. Just need to bring up the stats to see how good the bowlers were in that Test series. Probably should have had these ready and waiting before I press record, but you know how it goes. So against India in that 2-match Test series, Holder took 2 wickets at 62. Against Australia this time last year, or in January last year, Holder took 1 wicket at 223. He didn't tour Zimbabwe. And then there was a South Africa tour. Was Holder on that South Africa tour? Let's remind myself. West Indies tour or South Africa? Was Holder on that? Bear with me, people, because if these stats are telling me what they're telling me about Holder, don't get me wrong, I'm not about to say Holder shouldn't be going to Australia. He, of course, will go. Okay, so Holder was good against South Africa. I thought so. So Holder's year last year was awful against Australia, didn't go to Zim, very good against South Africa, 7 wickets at 23 apiece, and then rubbish against India. Holder will go to Australia. He is a lock. Roach shouldn't go to Australia, but Roach is he's the pack leader, right? Roach in South Africa last year. Remember, everyone was writing Kemar Roach off prior to that South Africa Test series, saying, he shouldn't tour away and da-da-da-da. And then he took that 5-for. He took 5 for 47 in one of the innings. He ended that series in South Africa with 7 wickets at 32 apiece. Against India at home, he ended with 4 wickets at 50 apiece. But it's worth noting that nobody was good against India at home. So just to remind you, last time out, Warrican took 5 at 46, Roach 4 at 50, Gabriel 2 at 54, Holder 2 at 62, Joseph 1 at 214. I mean, no one was good with the ball against India, right? So Roach will go to Australia, a place where he struggles. Wasn't good last time out against Australia. So last time out against Australia, if I still got those stats, last time out against the Australians, Roach took 1 wicket at 121. And actually, it's worth reminding people about what happened in Australia last time. The best bowler in Australia last time was Devon Thomas. Let that sink in. 2 wickets he took at 33 apiece. Brathwaite took 3 wickets at 51. Joseph, 5 wickets at 53. Chase, 3 wickets at 104. Seals, 1 wicket at 113. Roach, 1 wicket at 121. Anderson Phillip, 1 wicket at 159. Jason Holder, 1 wicket at 223. Blouse and skirt. So when we talk about the bowling attack that is going to go to Australia, boy, it's no use saying to me, boy, Kemar Roach isn't good away from home. Who is going to be good in Australia? So you're going to have to take Roach as your senior pack leader. Whether he plays or not is irrelevant, but you take him as your senior pack leader. So he's a lock. Gabriel, I think his time is now done. So he will be replaced. Warrican, big question mark. I don't know what they'll do with Jamel Warrican. Your guess is as good as mine there. And then riding the bench last time out versus the Indians was Raymond Reefer, who I think shouldn't be in the Test match squad, and Kevin Sinclair. So this is what I've written down. Based on what happened in the A series versus South Africa, and looking at how badly we struggled in Australia this time last year, then looking at how we played versus India and South Africa earlier this year, these are the players on the outskirts who I expect to come into contention. Zachary McCaskey, backup opener. In the middle order, I expect at least 2 of the following 4 players to be picked on tour. Darren Bravo, Shea Hope, Brandon King, and Casey Carty. I am expecting 2 of those 4, if not more, to go on tour to Australia in the middle order. Remember, Blackwood, I think, is getting dropped. So there's definitely 1 place available in that top to middle order. Kurt McKenzie doesn't necessarily, although he'll go on tour, that shouldn't necessarily mean that he must play versus Australia. Say Kurt McKenzie goes to Australia and struggles in those 2 tour matches prior to the first test. That doesn't mean he has to play in that first test. If you took a Bravo, if you took a Hope, if you took a Brandon King, and they scored big in those tour matches, well, drop Kurt McKenzie. I ain't bothered. Put one of the senior men in place of him instead. So I'll repeat that again. 2 out of Bravo, Hope, King, and Carty I expect to be included in the touring squads to Australia. Then with the ball, if Jaden Seals recovers in time from the injury in South Africa, he will tour. Shamar Joseph will tour. Kevin Sinclair will tour. And then I think one of Akeem Jordan and Jair McAllister will tour. I said 1, it could possibly be 2. Okay, so just to repeat that one more time, this is something based on what happened in the 18 tour. This is something approaching what I think the 15-man touring squad to Australia will look like. I don't even know if this is 15 names. Brathwaite, Chanderpaul, Zachary McCaskey, Kurt McKenzie, that's 4. Alec Athanaze, 5. Hope, 6. Not in order of batting. I'm talking about I'm counting how many are in the squad. Hope, 6. Bravo, 7. Josh, 8. Holder, 9. Alzari Joseph, 10. Kimar Roach, 11. Jaden Seals, 12. Shamar Joseph, 13. Kevin Sinclair, 14. And then one of Akeem Jordan or Jair McAllister, 15. And that's my 15-man squad. As things stand right now, that is my 15-man squad to tour Australia when that squad is announced, probably in the next week or so within the West Indies. What I just wanted to oh my gosh. What am I talking about? What am I talking about, people? There's me saying that's the 15-man squad, and there's one obvious person that I'm missing. Gudakesh Motie. That's now 16. That's 16 people that I've now selected. So one of those players probably isn't going. Rather than me tell you who I think won't go, you can all get in the comments below. So I just wanted to bring up some stats from this year's first class championship to see if there's anybody that I'm obviously missing. There's definitely no one that I'm missing with the bat who had a claim to go. I think I've called all the names, and then I think I've called all the names with the ball. So it's a 16-man squad that I've picked. Gudakesh Motie is the 16th player who I just forgot about. Motie should go. Doesn't mean he'll play in Australia, but someone therefore can't go if Gudakesh Motie goes. I don't know who that would be. You would assume it would mean you don't take Akeem Jordan and you don't take Jair McAllister. But people, I'm sure Darren Bravo won't be taken, but I've included his name because it makes utter and complete sense that Darren Bravo should go. But who knows who hates Darren Bravo, because certainly there is something behind the scenes that seemingly is preventing people from picking Darren Bravo. Let's see if he makes a test match squad. I've been Mashal St. Patrick Hewitt, one half of the Caribbean Cricket Podcast. It's been a bit of a long one. That one. Longer than I wanted it to be. But, lots of talking points in West Indies cricket as ever. As you see on the ticker tape below, whether you're listening on the audio or on the visuals, you can follow Caribbean Cricket Podcast at Carib Cricket on Twitter and Instagram. Like, share, and subscribe if you're watching on the visuals. Road to 7K, all of that. And of course, if you want to support us financially, we do not have a sponsor. Head to www.patreon.com/Carib Cricket. Like I say, I've been Mashal St. Patrick here, one half of the Caribbean Cricket Podcast. Thank you and good night.
We rule the cricket world. Now the rules coming.
Welcome to the Caribbean Cricket Podcast, your one-stop shop for all things West Indies cricket. By the fans, for the fans.